Today we are trying something different in AI Studio. Instead of building an app, I want to know if AI Studio can understand my writing voice. Not just copy it, but actually recognize the pattern that makes it mine. So let's find out. Hi, I am PixelPia and this is Creative AI Explorer. The last time we were inside AI Studio, we built an app. Today, we are not building anything. Instead, we are testing how well AI Studio and Gemini 3 Pro in this case can read, interpret, and recreate my writing voice. This is not a tutorial. This is more of an experiment that you can follow along as we try out Gemini 3 and its understanding of a writing voice. So let's move over to my computer. So here we are in aistudio.google.com and we are going to work in the playground here. Here you can choose if you want to do images, video, audio, or go live. But today we are working with Gemini. And on the right hand side here, you see we are working in Gemini 3 Pro. There are some system instructions you can use and so forth. But for today's experiment, we don't need to change any settings. So, how well can Gemini 3 analyze my writing style? I have a question here. What do you notice about the writing voice in these samples? And I have a couple of samples from my blog posts and from an article I wrote in Medium. So I just paste them in here. There are 2 examples and then I hit run and we will see what we get out of this model. And as you can see here, we can follow along as it is thinking. Unpack writing voices, defining sample voices, refining voice elements, summarizing voice characteristic, organizing voice insight. And if we close that, we can see based on these 2 samples, the writing voice is distinctively introspective, measured, and grounding. It feels less like a textbook instruction and more like a quiet conversation with a wise friend or mentor. Here are the specific characteristics that defines this voice. The evolution of thought structure. The voice relies heavily on a narrative of personal growth. And this creates a voice that is humble rather than authoritative. Rhythmic staccato punctuation. The writer uses sentence fragments and periods to force the reader to slow down. And the effect of that is this mimics the subject matter rest. The syntax itself creates pauses, preventing the reader from rushing, which reinforces the mood of stillness and contemplation. Number 3 is domestic and accessible imagery. The voice grounds abstract concepts like creativity and productivity in mundane, tangible reality. This makes the voice feel relatable and unpretentious. Number 4, aphoristic and redefining. The voice often takes a common concept and redefines it to offer a deeper truth. It speaks in quote-worthy statements. Example, rest is part of the work itself. This gives the voice a philosophical weight. It feels insightful and observational, encouraging the reader to shift their perspective. And number 5 is the gentle but firm contrast. The writing frequency uses juxtaposition to make its point without being aggressive. This creates clarity. The voice is soft, but the opinions are strong and clearly defined. And then we have a little summary. The voice is contemplative, soothing, and wise. It is designed to lower the reader's heart rate and offer permission to slow down. using a rhythm that embodies the very rest it advocates. And I would say this is quite a good description of how I write these posts and articles, which is very much about my inner world and things that I think about that I want to share with the world. Now we will see how well Gemini 3 Pro can use this voice. So we will ask it, can you write a short intro paragraph for an article about how AI might affect creativity and the future for artists using this voice? And we click run. And here we have the first paragraph. I used to think creativity was purely about the output, the painting, the paragraph, the code. I worried that if a machine could replicate the result, the artist would become obsolete, a relic, a ghost in the machine. But the more I sit with this shift, the more I realize that art isn't just about what we make. It's about the friction of making it. An algorithm can generate an answer, but it cannot feel the weight of the question. It cannot stare out the window, coffee in hand, wrestling with the feeling until it finally finds its name. We are not being replaced. We are being asked to remember what makes us human. I can see parts of this be written by myself, but there are a couple of direct giveaway that this is AI. And one is right here, the overuse of M dashes in AI writing. I have never used M dashes in my own writing, but this is something that AI is very keen on putting in all kinds of writing. And there are some other things that doesn't really sound with me. Some words choices, for example. Remember that English is my second language, and there are some words that don't come naturally to me that other writers might choose. So let's see. Now I'm gonna ask AI to write the same paragraph but exaggerate the voice and see if we can get it to sound even more like me. And again, we can look at the thinking patterns here first. Grasping exaggeration, refining the approach, analyzing depth, defining essence, exploring human moments. And I think what I really like about using Gemini here in AI Studio are just the thoughts that we can see. How is it thinking about the assignment? So let's see the new and exaggerated intro paragraph. I used to believe that creativity was defined by the finish line, the product, the result, the thing you could hold in your hands. I thought that if a machine could reach that finish line faster, the race was over, lost, gone. But the longer I sit with this in the quiet of the morning, the more I realize that I was asking the wrong question. Art isn't the painting. It's the pause before the brush touches the canvas. It's the hesitation, the mess, the long, slow breath. An algorithm can generate an answer. It can mimic. It can produce. But it cannot wait. It cannot sit in the stillness, watching the steam rise from a warm cup, allowing a feeling to ripen before it speaks. Efficiency is for the machine. The stumbling, the wandering, the ache of the process, that belongs to us. And I actually think that this is more of my style of writing. It still needs work, but it's more like my writing voice. Now let's see if we can break this by asking, write a paragraph that tries to sound like this voice, but not quite. Let some things fall apart. And let's follow along here. Examining the core idea, exploring the breakdown, considering the machine's limits, polishing the aphorism, reflecting on new revelations. And let's see here. I used to think AI was a threat, a villain, a thief, but then I took a break to unload the dishwasher. The steam hit my face, a pause, a moment, and I realized the dishes don't wash themselves, but they do get clean. That's the work. We worry about robots, but we forget to breathe, to sit, to optimize. Real creativity isn't about the painting. It's about the mindset of the painter. It's about leveraging the silence. The machine creates content. You create context. So stop working. Just stop. Take a nap. That's where the real ROI is. Well, this doesn't sound like me at all. And let's see why this falls apart. The metaphor falls. The dishwasher imagery tries to be grounding but ends up being nonsensical. Exactly what I was thinking reading this. Corporate creep. Words like optimize, leveraging, ROI invade the text. The original voice is anti-productivity culture. This version uses the language of productivity to describe rest, which feels hypocritical. Aggressive staccato, the fragments, a villain, a thief, feels forceful and dramatic rather than contemplative. And performative wisdom, the conclusion, that's where the real ROI is, turns the concept of rest back into a transaction, completely missing the point of the original voice. So yes, it could really fall apart if someone tried to just imitate my voice. Now I'm gonna ask it, create a small voice profile that I could use to guide future writing. And again, let's see how it's thinking. Crafting a voice profile, developing core pillars, naming key characteristics, defining pitfalls and refinement. So let's see. Here is a concise voice profile based on the samples. You can use this as a style guide or a prompt for AI tools to maintain consistency. And it calls this voice profile the quiet creative. Archetype is the wise friend or the grounded philosopher. And the goal is to lower the reader's heart rate, offer permission to slow down, and reframe productivity as care. Core tonal qualities. It's introspective, grounded, measured, and vulnerable but steady. The structural signatures is the pivot. It uses structure like I used to believe, but now I realize. The staccato list use sentence fragments to create rhythm and emphasis. The redefinition, take a common word and separate it from its synonym to create contrast. Stopping is X, resting is Y. And then the domestic anchor. Every philosophical point must be paired with a physical action. Do not talk about mental clarity without mentioning sitting by a window. Vocabulary and phrasing. Keywords are season, space, settle, unfold, writ, pause, stillness, quiet, allow, nourish. And ban words, the anti-voice. Optimize, leverage, hack, grind, hustle, ROI, output, efficient, and crush. The golden rules for writing. Don't preach, confess. Avoid the expert tone. Keep metaphors small. End on a soft truth. And the litmus test. Read the paragraph aloud. Does it sound like a LinkedIn post? Fail. Does it sound like a whispered conversation on a porch at 6 a.m.? It's a pass. Well, I must say, I gave it so little to work with in the beginning here. So I can see why it ended up where it did. This was just two little clips from 2 different articles I have done. If I had given it much more of my own writing, and maybe on different topics, because my writing changes a little bit depending on what I write about, I think this method can be really great to figure out my writing voice. And let me see, where did I get? Here is the part that explains this voice, and I can copy this as text and save it somewhere if I really want to use this again for my own writing. I won't do this now because with such small samples, it's not really accurate. But in general, I must say that Gemini 3 Pro really did a good job of analyzing both the tonal qualities, the structural variations, a little less about vocabulary and phrasing, but that I must blame on the very short samples I gave. But it is a pretty accurate analysis of my writing voice based on those samples. If you would like to try this in your own writing, just go to AI Studio in Google. And I would love to hear from you in the comments down below what you discovered. Next time, we are continuing this series in Google Labs. And we are continuing on the theme of writing. We are going to try a tool that can be really helpful in many different types of writing. And that is called TextFX. So if that is something you want to follow along with, make sure you are subscribed and hit the little bell so you get notified on when I upload. This was Creative AI Explorer and my series AI in Google. I hope to see you here in my next video. And as always, stay curious. Bye.